So hi everyone, today in this video we're gonna get going on in the discussions that we have started in the last video, that we have talked about the basis of economy. That's important because, as I've said and as pointed out in the last video, it's important to understand the basis of economics because it helps you to be a better decision maker in order so to be someone that makes better decisions for your future generations, or even your generation that wants to have better pollutions, have to get so the prices not being too much inflected, don't want to have scarcity in our environment. So it's important to understand economy because economy studies about how we can, by using our limited resources, satisfy the almost unlimited needs that everyone tends to have. And so we tend to manage, we tend to work on in order to having this type of paradox of limited resources and limited type of needs getting balanced in order so to everyone get the basal ones, the ones that are essential need, and as well some other ones that are useful as entertainment as well going on, and people getting so served with these utilities. So we've talked about basic concepts. Opportunity cost. Opportunity cost talks about the way that we evaluate the action, and the opportunity cost evaluates in a way that we should always do, and we tend always to do the actions that have less costs in comparison with the resources or the needs that it tends to contribute in terms of what's positive of action. The ones that tend to have like higher differential in terms of cost to being triggered, unleashed, and the savings that we got, it tends to be the ones that we tend to do. That's why the action that we tend to do, like in terms of relationships, we tend to have relationships with people that I've get like from the environments that I'm present on. That's why I get friendships with the schools that I've got. That's why I make friendships in the works that I'm in, because it's less costs are needed than just walk and go to talk with other ones and develop the relation. It's something that's simple, and obviously that's something that it contributes as well for the way that people develops in their areas, because some other ones have opportunity cost lower to be engineers because it's positive for them, because they are good, they have like intellectual abilities, and that's why they go for these areas, because they receive more because they're better. And so by being better in performing the tasks in that area than other ones, they will receive better. That's why some other ones specialize in other areas, and so we have a whole diversify of jobs existing because people have different skills. Economy is based in the human behavior, and human behavior is based in incentives. That's why people and we get and receive money by work that we do and provide for other ones, and by doing that we're being smart because we're providing value for other ones while I'm seeking my own objectives. And that's why it produces so much value, because we have so much people connected nowadays with the globalization that we can so consume a lot of the goods utilities produced by other ones, that everyone so seeking by their own needs getting satisfied in their journey. They have and they are obligated by the way that our economy is structured to provide value for other ones. And that's so something that's good because it creates supplies, creates goods that producers that are, everyone tends to be produced, everyone that works, they're so producing and selling for the people. And we have the other side, that's all other people that have the ability to demand and is much more easy to supply. And that's why we've talked about the concept of inflation, the tendency of always having an increased amount in terms of prices over the time, because demand tends to grow much higher than the supply. It's much easy to demand something to than in comparison with create. And even more, and it's not a shade but it's the reality, even more with politicians of socialism that tends to more privilege and tends to solve more the problem of the not being balanced, the supply demand, because constantly is difficult to always be balanced. And we tend to work more in trying to make the demand having more money by printing more money. And so in socialism we tend to have more inflation as well. So with this increase of demand and increase of minimal wages, that most of the time the people that Obviously not being something that's generalizing, but majority of people, or majority of not, I'm exaggerating, but a good amount, they what they receive for minimal wages when they're decreasing and they have a tendency to decrease, sometimes they don't produce for being able to receive. It's like a negative. It's a negative ratio between what they receive in order for what they produce, and so it creates inflection because obviously it is not something that gonna create so value for the economy because people are taking more than what they're producing, and it's not something that's sustainable. And so focusing more on supply, it's important. Because why? And now we're going to develop the type of market structures that as well determine the prices and so the cost that I suffer to go off from my pocket to get so my goods and utilities that I want. Because we have structures. One of the things that people tend to fight is monopoly. That's when just one type of entrepreneur, a specific company has the ability to provide a good that a lot of people want. And obviously, by the power being much more in supply, this monopoly can work to so put prices too much higher and so make the majority of people don't getting and obviously getting frustrated, and that's why as well creates reactions in other side to fight this out balance between supply and demand, and in here inter makes so the states works to make incentives from people working in that area too, that can be so in terms of money they cut in terms of how much they pay in taxes, can be as well helping in by making and loaning money for this. So we have incentives. It's basically working by incentives. But what is the tendency? Monopoly exists, but the tendency is that, and this is the depending of what is your position, right, left. The best is always to don't exist monopoly. Obviously, if you're not the one that is in monopoly, because it obviously increases a lot the profit that these companies that are the monopolists have. But for the majority of the population, it's not good, and that's why monopolies and they tend not to be sustainable because we have and we look for them and we fight them, and obviously the majority beats always the minority, even if it's so powerful. And obviously, so monopoly tends to be built sometimes because sometimes someone have so much good in doing something, a comparative advantage is even like the paradox of by being so much good in something, then if obviously by doing so good in something and I try to enjoy it, and this is obviously increasing the profit that goes from me, that's something that I do like, everyone likes, but obviously they tend so to get it tends to be balanced by other ones trying to fight it, and we tend to look for more for perfect competition. That what happened, that we have more like type of companies that they don't have like too much profit, and this is well in is having as well in count uh, like the way that we see the social system, that we tend to want to get equality, don't to get so people with too much or too less, and this comes so why the way that what they receive as the job they do, and we don't want so these monopolies people that have too much money, and it if it's not fault, it tends even to be exponential because they tend to establish, they tend to put their roots too much deep in so the markets they tend to be difficult for other ones that they try to make and be as a competitors, but by others be so much established in the mind of consumer is much more is like creating already a relationship, it's difficult, which more time it takes to get off from someone to a monopoly, more difficult is to get down. And so that's why perfect competition tends to be the things that we do like more competition, because competition is the synonym of having a good amount of supply, which so doesn't explore the people that demand of the good, that they so are required to get the goods too much of the price because they are too much for the people that are able to supply. That's why we like to get education, that's why education tends to be free, we want people to get smart, to learn, and so having it's like a stimulation for the supply being always in existing in good amount. That's why we facilitate by providing a good amount of resources. That's why it's so good the emergency of internet, because obviously looking for the concept of opportunity cost, it decreases how much expensive is to get learnings, to knowledge, to obviously to as well sometimes with the emergence of the entrepreneurship in the digital era, is as well something that makes it easy for people to create their own business, and so they can work. And obviously what it requires to produce a business requires to marketing, requires to connect with people. It's easier. It's these platforms, it's well economy, it's the economy, the way that these platforms has placed and has so made the supply being much more easy to exist, because more people are able to produce something, because they get more inputs, they can so produce as well more outputs, and that's something that we have to get in count. And obviously all the productions that we do, they tend to make a constitution of the gross domestic product, the total value of all goods and services that are produced. And that's why we want and we tend to get that supply as well to increase and to facilitate having education, working and working in the market, and the state always wanting to make interventions to doesn't existing monopolies and much more trying to competitions. And so obviously it tends to create a higher gross domestic product, because more products are made, but people are more stimulated to produce. And it's obviously something that's best, because if it exists more as well, people so will consume more people will get consumed. And obviously something that we tend to do, like less inflection, because less people less people, so more people will be able to supply, and the demand so will not will be explored by the small ones that have the ability to supply, because are the small ones that have incentives enough, because are the ones that makes profits by being monopoly, have a comparative advantage that other ones cannot match, and so that's why we look for. And obviously so other things that are useful in a world that's scarce in terms of resources is don't exist unemployment. We don't like it. And obviously unemployed is fought by making people able to being someone that can be worked in the world of jobs. And that's why again free education is something that's so much essential. Is was the evolution, is like one of the revolutions that we had, and probably people doesn't get the don't give the praise that how useful it is in our society to build our society, because it works as well with another concept that's important to be efficient, that is the unemployment. That's something that's important to get. So I expect this video helps you to go even so stronger in your understanding about how economics works, and see you in the next one.